Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Max Frequency Podcast. I am your host, Max Roberts, and I have the pleasure of being joined by my friend and game developer and video essay man, Brian Henken. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hello. I didn't realize that sometimes I don't realize all the hats that I'm wearing.
You wear
at
a lot
given
of
time.
hats. But, well, I guess you wear a beanie. It's like your hat.
Yeah,
then
I
you do
didn't
a
I
lot of
didn't
things.
realize. That's become kind of like a thing. But yeah, it's a beanie with a lot of like little secrets hidden underneath it.
Oh, is it called dandruff or little hairs? What's underneath the hat? Oh, under the hat, your brain.
Yeah. I it's a cap that covers my like it's my skull is just out and my brain is exposed.
It's your cappy. You throw it, and you become things.
That's how I become. That's how I take over everyday objects.
Oh my goodness gracious! I wanted to open the show with a little anecdote about us. You know, we've been friends for far too long because
Sometimes I forget that. It's been a very long time.
yeah, I mean, it had to be early high school, at least 10th grade for me. You're a year on behind me, right? Yes.
Yeah. I
So-
graduated in 2014.
Yeah, and I was 13. So at the very least, I was in 10th grade and you were in 9th. I don't even remember how we met, but it's been a very long time.
I remember vaguely, like, I remember being
Was it Kyle?
a sophomore when I made you. Yeah, I think it was Kyle or maybe Angelo. I don't know if you remember him. Man, I don't know who it was, but I want to say I think I was a sophomore and someone was just like, hey, my friend really likes Kingdom Hearts. I think you guys would get along. And that's how so many of my friendships have started. It's just hey, this person likes Kingdom Hearts. Talk to
This
them.
person's crazy like you.
It really takes someone who, like, especially now, you have to be at least a little insane to
Yeah,
like Kingdom Hearts at the level that we do.
It's a little absurd. But that's kind of one of the things is, you have been on Millennial Gaming Speak 6 times. That was the show that Lauren and I
Yes.
used to do. And the second episode that you were on in that show, episode 23, it was just you and me. Keys to the Kingdom, parentheses hearts. We just talked about Kingdom Hearts.
I remember that.
We talked about a little bit of news, but then we ranked the Kingdom Hearts series. And that would have been that was in 2015, so that would have been. Was 3 out by then? When did 3 come out?
3
was
came out in 2019.
19?
I would love to know what that ranking was because I'd love to see how much it differs to now.
Yes.
If it's any different at all. If Kingdom Hearts 2 was anywhere but number 1, I think I have to go back in time and slap myself.
I feel like it probably was. I would have been pushing
had to
for
be.
I would have been pushing for Birth by Sleep then, for sure. And still would.
Oh yeah. I mean you're a big Birth by Sleep head.
I am. It probably was like 2 in Birth by Sleep. Or 1 and 2. I just don't know what the order was.
Yeah, I think we made separate lists, I think. We didn't come
Maybe.
together on one list.
That's the thing. I don't have like the show. I don't have the notes anymore, I don't think. Anyway.
Oh, I'm sure they're lost to time.
Well, I just was going back and archiving everything. So
Really?
So that I actually have like links to everything and I can read all the show notes and things. So, but I don't know if I had that specific episodes because some episodes I still had notes, some I didn't because they were in Google Docs. But one of the things that you've done for me as a very good friend, and I thanked you for this at the time. This is not me like making up for lost time, but I wanted to thank you again. You bought me a PS3 after I sold my PS3. You were such a
I
nice
did.
boy. You came over one day, you're like, hello, here's a PS3. You were so sad that you sold yours, and I just wanted you to have one back. And that's
I
like one of the
remember that.
nicest things someone's ever done for me.
Yeah, I remember like I had like a bunch of stuff I was like getting rid of, and so I brought it to like a local like retro game shop.
I think it was Gamers Inc.
I was just about to say the name was escaping me, but shout out Gamers Inc.
Yes.
And they were like, something was going on with like we can't do cash right now, like where you don't have checks, like we can only do store credit. And I was like, I don't really want to get anything. And then I was like, but I want to like, you know, I was thinking, I was like, maybe I'll get something. And then I saw the PS3 and I was like, oh, I have an idea. And I was just like, hey, do you have like this model specifically? And they were like, yeah, we got one in the back. And I was able to get it like essentially like, I think I got it for like $10,
which
like
is
with
crazy.
all the stuff I was trading in. And I was like, this is going to go crazy. This is going to go hard.
I remember you apologizing. You were like, I'm sorry, it's not the back compat model. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I don't care. You're giving me a PlayStation.
Yeah, no, that was it. I asked for the back compat model first, and they didn't have it.
Yes. So this would have been around, oh gosh, Instagram doesn't tell you days. Oh, yes, it does. November 5th, 2015 was when I got my Xbox One. And so I traded my PS3 collection for my Xbox.
So sad.
Which is a big mistake, probably, in hindsight. Actually,
yeah,
there's no probably about
is...
it. It was a mistake.
For an Xbox One?
Yeah. So it was 2015, so this was 2 years into the gen.
What did we have by then? I don't even know if we had Sea of Thieves yet.
I don't think so. So I'm looking at the picture. I got the Xbox One 1 terabyte with Gears of War Ultimate, Rare Replay, Ori and the Blind Forest. I think that's that game, right? Ori and the Blind Forest?
Yeah, Ori and the Blind Forest was the first one.
Yeah. So I got that. It came with a controller and a free game, like an extra game. So those 3 games were in the box. And then I got Halo 5 Guardians. Is that what Halo 5 subtitle is? Guardians?
Yeah. Sorry you had to play that.
Well, I like the multiplayer in that game. The campaign
The multiplayer was fun. I'll give you that.
The campaign, I remember the ad campaign more than the actual campaign.
Yes.
The
it
whole,
was interesting.
The whole like is chief a villain or like a war criminal type thing in this conflict.
Do you remember the audio
podcast
drama they made?
Yes.
Yes.
So
it was
good.
so good. Oh my gosh, it was great.
It was the best. It made me way more excited for that game than anything else for the game. And they just totally
my gosh,
flubbed.
I was fiending for that game after that. I had I remember Keegan-Michael Key was in it. Jerry Traynor was in it. Probably some other people that I can't remember, but yeah, like
so good,
incredible.
But yes,
so good.
The game was not, and that's what I sold my entire PS3 collection for. Was that? And
gosh, that's
well,
brutal.
most of it. I kept Sly 4. I kept Metal Gear Solid 4, and a couple other games.
Sly 4 was actually the first game that you got out to test that it was working.
Oh, was it?
I remember,
was it
like
really?
we went there. You were like, I have to plug this in.
Well,
now.
this is true.
I want to play something.
That's one of the only games I would have had out and access to.
Yeah, I remember it. I can still remember because I've never played it, but I can remember the title screen, which was some like warping light tunnel.
Because there's a lot of time travel in that game. There's a lot of timey-wimey stuff. So yeah, and then so thank you. It's still sitting out. It's plugged in right now.
You're welcome.
I've upgraded the hard drive to my PS4 launch hard drive, 500 gigabytes. So I just took the PS4 hard drive, plopped that sucker inside. Yeah.
I had no idea they'd even be compatible. I mean, I guess,
hard drive's a hard drive.
Hard drives really be like it's a hard drive.
Yep. And it's super easy to do on a PS3. Like the side panels just pop off and you just like slide it in. So the thing that sucks is downloading everything to it because the PSN on PS3 is so slow.
The Wi-Fi card is brutal.
It's a rough ride. But, thank you. I have a shiny fat
You're
PS3
welcome.
Because of you. You're a good boy. You're a good lad.
I do my best.
You
sometimes, I sometimes forget like just how long we've known each other and how many like chapters we've been through. I mean, you've been like, for better or worse, I guess, supporting the stuff that I make, whether it's really cringy, unfunny video game reviews or a barely functioning first video game. Like you're always there, like rooting for me, and that's I very much appreciate that.
Oh, of course. And Millennial Gaming Speak episode 125, How to Make a Video Game.
Oh my gosh, I
Brian
love
Henken
to go
joins
back
the
and
crew
listen
to talk
that
about
now.
developing his game Light of the Mountain.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure I'm sure I was talking about stuff that I had no idea I was talking about.
I wish I had realized, because I remember you coming on to talk about it, but I wish I had listened to that before before tonight, just so I could remember what we talked about. But that episode's out there, so we could.
I wish I could listen to it.
Well, it's up. You can go find it somewhere.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm actually very, because I like looking back now to like 2017 was when I was like really deep into development on Light of the Mountain.
Yeah,
And I had no clue what I was doing.
This episode came out like a week before the game launched on Steam.
Oh my gosh,
it was January 24th of 2018, and I think it was February 2nd for Light of the Mountain.
It was right at the start of the month.
So
coming up on the anniversary.
The game was done. Yeah. The game was done by that point, I think.
Oh man, I still don't think it's done.
Nothing is ever truly done. Nothing.
No, especially not Light of the Mountain.
Oh my goodness. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later.
Oh, I have so much to say on it.
Another thing, though, I kind of just wanted to ask. Happy New Year, listeners. Happy New Year, Brian.
Happy New Year. Look at us in 2024, still doing it.
Yep, in the middle of the month. But do you have any goals, some gaming goals for the year? Because I do, and one of them is directly inspired by one of your video essays and the PS3, and I want to play Mirror's Edge again. I haven't played Mirror's Edge in probably a decade.
It is really... I play it like pretty frequently. I do like a playthrough a year. It holds up, and it's not a very long game. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It does what it does really well. What a game. So good.
Yeah, and I want to replay it. I haven't played it in so long, and I've got this... I just got it back physically on PS3. I've been like rebuilding that PS3 collection, so I just got it back physically. And then, I'm going to be trying to get a RetroTink 4K, and was kind of like, this is a good marriage here, good excuse to replay this game. So that's one of the 6 games I kind of like want to beat this year is Mirror's Edge. I may pivot over to the Xbox One version, or the Xbox Series X version, because it has a FPS boost up to 60 frames. But
yeah, and I think that's, if it's the Series X, I want to say that the back-compat emulation that they use actually scales it up to just a native 4K.
Yeah, see that may be what sways me, because it's not a stable frame rate on 360 or PS3. So, but anyway, it was. Just, it's one of the things.
It's a very clean-looking game.
Oh,
I
so
have it on
beautiful.
PC, and like, boosting that game up to like Ultra HD resolutions, it looks like a game that came out like maybe like 4 years ago.
That's the power of clear and beautiful art direction.
Yeah, that is the power of clear, solid art direction and very close attention to materials and baked lighting. Man, like they killed it. They just killed it.
They did. So that's one of my goals. I just didn't know if you had any goals, any things you were trying to beat or do video game related this year.
Man, I don't know. One thing I really did want to do, which, I mean, we're going to talk about it, was I wanted to take the videos that I make a little more seriously. Like before, this year, I think the last video I had made was Virtual Sadness. I just released The Illusion a week ago. But it took I developed that game in like a month. Or I developed that video in like a month, and I didn't, before then, it had been a while since I released Virtual Sadness.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I don't know, like this is kind of just a hobby. I enjoy it a lot, but, I don't know how far it will go. It's just something that like is clearly very personal and is not going to resonate with everybody. But the more I do it, the more I'm like, wow, I really do enjoy this. Like it feels good to get those thoughts out and present them in like a really or what I think is a very artistic way, and to have people resonate with it the way that they do, I'm like, maybe it's time to give this a little more care and attention. And so that's the main thing that I wanted to like dedicate my 2024 to, was to give this stuff the time I think it deserves.
I mean, you've done 4 videos in the last 8 months. We were talking about this before the show. And I mean, these are all, I'd say average time is, I'm not doing real math here, but they're all like 25-minute, half-hour videos, at kind of the rough average.
I think 3 of them are over a half hour, and then
Donkey Kong.
The Donkey Kong 64 one is about a little over 20 minutes.
Yep. So, I mean, you're making TV episodes here. And
yeah.
So, you're doing way more video work than I do, that's for sure. And, I mean, you put a lot of work and detail, I think, into them. You impress me, at least. You're impressing me.
I do my best. I really try to, like, pull out all the stops for these. I think just because the types of videos that I make are the types of videos that get recommended to me all the time. Uh-huh. And typically it's just someone with, like, and I don't mean this in like a mean way. I'm not even really critiquing them. They're making the stuff that they want to make. But it to me, it comes off as like someone with kind of uncollected thoughts, talking over gameplay footage that isn't really pertinent to the things that they're saying, which is totally fine. Like they're obviously not, setting out to make some artistic magnum opus masterpiece. But I would look at that stuff and be like, I have similar thoughts, or maybe at least more personal thoughts on video games, and like I feel like I really have like an opportunity to present those thoughts in an impactful way. That's at least where it came from. And I hope I'm doing a good job.
You are. And I want to dig into it, and let's jump into it. But I have to start the video essay section with a question. This is what the people want to know, Brian.
Oh, boy. All right.
Where is the original Donkey Kong video? Why are you not crawling out of a sewer, shaking a yellow banana cartridge, and shooting it into the sky?
I forgot about that. But
Bring it
funny,
back.
I have it.
I
do have it.
Put it up on the channel.
So I guess
just have another Donkey Kong video.
I guess for those who aren't, I'm addressing the listeners directly now. If you are unaware, which I would hope most of you are, God, I hope you are. I used to make these like probably 10-minute long video game reviews, like when I was in high school. But they were more like comedically focused, and I use the term comedically super loose.
I mean, I thought it was
the thing is, like, I didn't even think they were funny. I just posted them.
Yeah.
But I remember looking back at them one day and being like, man, like, not only is this not funny to me, it's not entertaining to me, but it's also like not who I am. I was very clearly just chasing a trend.
Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't me. Like, this isn't the stuff that I want to be making. So I have all those videos, and that Donkey Kong 64 one is kind of a mix of me getting a little personal about something that I really love, but also trying to make a joke of it. And at the end, I used what we in the industry call special effects to basically shoot a beam of light out of my hand, which launched a cartridge of a Donkey Kong 64 and Nintendo 64 cartridge into space. I can't remember if it blew up the moon or not. That may have been another one.
I just remember you clearly by a retention pond.
Yes.
Basically crawling out of this sewer and shaking the cartridge violently to shoot it into space. Like, that is what's stuck in my brain, and I can't get it out, and it needs to come back.
If I know for sure I can find that clip. I'm almost positive I can find the entire video. If I find it, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. That's all I want in life, you know? That's all I need to come back. But, like, you know, like, I have a bunch of very cringy things still up on the internet that I'll never take down.
Oh, we all do.
I'm such, like, a weird preservationist when it comes to my own stuff that, like, I cannot bring myself to take these things down. But I have videos, like, I have, like, Windows Movie Maker videos that are just slideshows with Comic Sans text over them. You know, one's like Mudkip's Army, episode 1, where I probably make terrible middle school like level jokes, and I don't know, Mudkip. I think I have a Mudkip become a Nazi is one of them that I remember.
Yeah, that sounds about like middle school me.
Yeah. So, you know, I have that. I have me doing like a fireball. I apparently remade the end of Phoenix Wright Justice for All in like a flash. You know, like I'm doing terrible cringy things. All sorts of
I did too.
Here.
With my neighbors, we made like some of the worst videos ever. And I don't mean worst as in like horrible to watch, but they're just lame.
Yeah.
And I'm the opposite. Like I take that, I delete that stuff and like get rid of it. That or I put it on a hard drive and never watch it.
Yeah, no one's gonna care. Like who's watching this channel still, you know? I think my magic
it's hard to find old stuff on YouTube now anyway. It gets buried.
unless you know where it is to look. Yeah. Like my like magic card trick web YouTube channel is still up, but I'll never see. This is the thing. I think
I remember that actually.
Probably. See, I'll never tell anyone now the channel name, and like I'll never point someone to it, but I know it, and I'll never delete it. Like that's the difference. Is I won't go look at my cool magic tricks when I was 12 years old and had the voice of a 12-year-old boy.
I think you told me about that in high school and showed me something of it. It sounds so familiar.
Well,
the thing is, I have channels like that, and I don't even remember what they are. They're stuck up there forever.
Well, I guess it's easy because that's all I have. But like the funny thing is, some of these magic tutorials have tens of thousands of views. Like the biggest one is 31,000 views.
Oh my god.
For this tutorial, for this 20,000, 18,000, 15,000, 15,000. Like I have this semi-ish successful.
You were doing numbers at 12 years old.
Yeah, I don't know. And the sad thing is I don't know the login for this. Maybe I could figure it out if I really tried. So like I can't see the actual analytics or statistics of it. At one point, I did go in and shut off the comments because they were getting a little creepy.
As the internet does.
Yeah. I remember one time, back before Twitch, I was streaming on Stickam. Did you ever use Stickam?
Yes. I do remember Stickam.
So I was streaming like a Game Boy Advance emulation off this laptop that had no business recording the screen, running an emulator and streaming to the internet, but I was doing it anyway. And I remember someone like, it's funny. It's not funny. It's terrible. It's not funny at all. Someone was getting very like child molester inappropriate with me on there. I was like, I don't know what to do. How do I get out?
Yeah, because it's like we're just kids. I'm just a child.
And so I remember my buddy was in the stream with me, and he was like, he reported them, and then I like just shut it down and like had to tell my dad. Was like, I don't know what to do, and it just it's terrible. I can only imagine what that. Actually, I remember I wrote about it because there were predators using Twitch that way to like get into children's lives in horrible ways, and I remember writing about that on the site. It's bad.
Well, I remember that like the internet back then, and even a little bit now, was kind of like the Wild West. Like
yes, it was.
Anything could happen. And we were just on there as teenagers.
Yeah, I was just a 12-year-old who wanted to make videos about video games, you know? And then
I think we're both still kind of 12-year-olds who want to make videos about video games.
Yes, we are. And it's interesting because at least what's on your channel now, you know, is what do you have? You have a total of 8 videos on here. And 3 of them are songs. And then,
yes.
But you had this one from 4 years ago, and I kind of call this your first video essay.
I do too at this point.
Yeah, it's the river where time stops, and I know the river. I was like, I've been where you've shot some of this, you know?
Yes, yeah, because you live here. Forget that, like.
I mean, yes, I used to swim in there. I remember one quote in the video specifically, you were like, you know, like, what's in the water, or like, what's under the water or something, and my brain went to amoebas that are going to eat my brain.
Yes. Oh my
So
gosh.
don't dunk
if it's
your
hot
head.
enough.
Don't dunk your head in the little econ, but you can swim in it. You know, flipping.
I swam in it a
swinging.
couple of times.
I've been in it a few times, but today I would not put my head underwater. Let's just put it that way.
I don't think I would do it now.
No. I might put my feet in.
I think I could put a foot in, but that's about as far as I'm gonna go.
Mm-hmm. And
at least in that river.
Yes, I agree. But I loved what I loved about it was because I knew the place, but not just the person, but I knew the place and I could relate to it. But you kind of have this theme that I've noticed in most of your videos, and it really starts here, which is, I forget the author you quote, but basically it's like memories.
I believe it was Ransom Riggs.
Yeah, memories trapped in a physical space or something along those lines, and like
yes,
things trapped.
He called them, like, the way he referred to them was like physical objects being time trapping machines.
Yeah, I wrote it down here. There it is. And I find that interesting because your other videos are similar in that way, but instead of a physical space, they're virtual spaces, and how those signify and mean things to you. And so I that's just one thing I guess I've noticed about it, and I'm curious your approach to these essays now. And you, like, the idea comes in your head, I want to talk about Link's Awakening. And then it just morphs into this whole video about, honestly, that game development and understanding how games are made, and then it breaking the way that you enjoy the thing. It's almost like this curse of knowledge to a degree. How do you approach an essay?
So for me it's a little strange, and it's very disjointed. But in the case of Link's Awakening, I had this document for the longest time of how I was going to... I have a note in my phone that's just called Stuff I'm Working On, and they are loose ideas for videos that I want to make. And one of them was about how, for the longest time, I had this very clear-cut thing of, like, just what do I value in a game more? How fun it is to play, or the story that's being told? And I find that in a lot of games, it's not always... it is always one or the other, at least for me, where the story that I am playing through isn't really affecting the way that I play the game. Like, no matter what, in Uncharted, I'm going to keep shooting the bad guys. No matter what, in Zelda, I'm going to keep, like, swinging my sword. But there are a few games that their stories will actually change the way that I play them, and Link's Awakening was one of them. Another one was Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh lordy!
Without spoiling anything, like, you know, there is something that happens about halfway through the game where it's like, oh man, like, I kind of need to get my act together. But Link's Awakening, I feel like what a game! Oh, I have a million things to say about that game.
I was just talking to my friends today about it because I was looking up a quote for it. In the third trailer, there's this quote from Dutch, and I wrote it down because I was going to use it in an article. But Dutch says, "You have to love yourself a fire. It's one of the blessings.
Sure, we can have fire. And we can have the knowledge of fire. But with that comes the knowledge of everything."
And I'm like, oh my God. The Hauser brothers all hail.
How do they do that?
So I watch those trailers every few months, and it dawned on me today, we're never going to get a game like that from Rock. We're never gonna get a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 again. I don't think.
No, that's a special one.
It's so.
It's monumental, like more than monumental. Like it's one of those things that it feels like that's what gaming's leading to.
It's absurd that that's what Rockstar got to make after and it's because GTA Online was so successful and has made them so much money. But that they got to make a game like Red Dead Redemption 2
is incredible.
That's what happens when you have unlimited money, I guess. It's just the story in that game is immaculate, and I can't believe it. And that's the game I look for. Like when I stop forcing myself to play other things for like a podcast or whatever, when I become truly an average video game consumer, middle-aged dad, like that's the game I look forward to going back when I just have time, right? Like to play whatever, and I get to replay Red Dead Redemption 2, like that. Yeehaw.
Yeah, like it really is like one of the best stories ever told in a game. But it's also one of those few times where it like the story is actively changing how I'm playing.
Yes.
And I find that that's so rare. And Link's Awakening was the only other time that I had experienced that. And so I was like, I'm going to make a video on that eventually. But then I got into this whole thing of remembering, there was that time where like I thought that I couldn't enjoy video games anymore. Like I thought that was it for me. I was just going to make games. I wasn't really going to play them as often as I was. Certainly not AAA ones.
It was, you had the knowledge of fire.
I had the knowledge of fire, as Dutch would say. And it really is like, it is everything, because it tore apart everything that I thought I loved about games. And now, obviously, I still do. But then I made that video and I got to the point of just like, I had almost thought of like ending it there, because I was like, I didn't actually remember when the change came, when I started to accept, when I was able to suspend my disbelief a little bit more again. But then I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, like after playing Link's Awakening, that kind of like was almost like a wake-up call. And I was like, oh wait, I was going to make a video on Link's Awakening anyway. So it kind of like brought itself back together. The Donkey Kong 64 one was one that I knew I always wanted to make. Yeah. I was like, I have to go all out for that, but I didn't know it was going to be the first one I would make.
I was really surprised that it was your first one, and it makes sense. It's one of the games you're the most passionate about, but you also kind of you like shot for the stars right out of the gate. Like you went with the one you care about the most. It's cool and bold, very bold.
I think I just knew I had a lot to say about it, and that like if anything, I was saying things that I knew were only going to be true from my point of view. I mentioned that like, K. Rool's Mechanical Island reminded me of my grandmother's house. Certain caves reminded me of Walmart. Like, who else has that experience except for me? But I'm hoping that I can translate it in a way that's going to make sense to people, at least why I feel like that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I figured I would upload this video and it would be seen by my friends. I really did not expect as many people to see it as they did, and I certainly didn't expect as many people to really resonate with it as they did. Mm-hmm. And I remember like just my phone just blowing up constantly with new notifications of comments and people subscribing and likes. And some of those comments are really long. They're people like really watch the whole thing, and they like told me about their own experiences with that game, their own experiences with other games, and how they felt similar about like Mega Man and I can only remember Mega Man. Some of these comments really had me like tearing up, and I remember one person saying, I can remember snowy days where there was no school, but I would wake up and I would play some game in bed. And he's like, my dad would like bring me breakfast in bed and make me hot chocolate, and he's like, I'll never get to experience that again. And I was like, dude, we're talking about like monkeys wearing ties and like we're talking about Donkey Kong 64, but like of course that makes sense. Like, it is a goofy game about monkeys with a rap at the beginning of it about being monkeys with coconut guns, but like that it affects you. You spend so much time with it and you learn to love it, even if it's not the best game in the world, that of course it's going to bring back those memories. So I knew I had to start with Donkey Kong 64 because that's how it affected me, and I knew I was like, I have so much to say about it that why not? Let's just go for it.
Yeah, I was just scrolling through some of it. You're sitting right under 6,000 views. You've got, I don't know, 50-something comments, and some of these are very, very long. Someone's mentioning Spyro. I'm like skimming these. It's really cool to see it just resonate. Was it 131 comments just resonate with people, especially for a game that gets raked over the coals quite a bit. But I also like have fond memories of Donkey Kong 64. I remember my dad getting it at a garage sale with a bunch of other N64 games, but we didn't have the expansion pack, and so we bought an expansion pack from the video rental store, down the street. And I remember trying to play Donkey Kong Country on my Game Boy Color through the N64 transfer pack because I had no idea how the transfer pack worked. And I was like, but I have a Game Boy game. I have the controller and I have the Donkey Kong game. Shouldn't it work? It didn't work. That's
so funny.
But I remember having this save file, and I still do on the cartridge of theirs, and like trying to figure out. I never would beat the game, and like Frantic Factory scared the crap out of me. But I remember
it is actually very scary.
I remember finding the Donkey Kong or the Jetpack. I think it was both of the arcade machines in there, and like spending so much time just playing the arcade game inside Frantic Factory, like this little safe haven to play a game within a game, which I also thought was really neat. It's for as bad of a game as it is, it's a very special game, I think. And I haven't played it in a very, very long time. So I like that you started out with that one.
Oh yeah, and I even started out with that in the video where I was like, let's get this out of the way. Yeah. This game is not like quote unquote good. And here's why. But I think that's something that's like really important is that you can love something that deeply even though it is like quote unquote bad. The one thing that I remember like having to contend with reading those comments of like, this person has a similar thing with Spyro, this person has a similar thing with Mega Man, and I'm thinking like someone out there has this exact same feeling about like League of Legends or Overwatch or Call of Duty, you know what I mean? Someone feels similar about those games, and that's totally valid.
It is, and actually it's an interesting, I don't know if problem's the right word, but people that feel that way. I think about this with Fortnite, and I thought about this before I just started playing I just played Fortnite for the first time last month, and now I'm into it. So it's been 6 years.
I really do like Fortnite a lot. I hate to admit it, but I do like it.
I like it quite a bit. I never really thought. I just kind of thought it was the silly crossover game, but it's actually really, really quite good. But I think about this, and I guess it probably extends from something like Destiny, which I've poured hundreds of hours into back in the day, is people who have a fondness or loved Fortnite in the early years or Destiny 1 will never be able to go back and experience that again. Like, it's gone because of this service angle to it, and it's always evolving, always changing, always being patched and updated. But Donkey Kong 64 is forever.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
And I think...
And I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, like, if you're trying to play Original Island Fortnite, you can't.
I mean, I guess you could last year for a hot minute, but...
And even that, I don't think was, like, the original, like, before Tilted Towers and all those, like, giant cities.
Right. You can't, go wipe out Tomato Town or revive your buddy and head southbound.
Forgot about that.
It's a great song. So I think that's an interesting angle of games today don't, especially the multiplayer ones, like will not be the same when you want to go back. And it'll be interesting to see how these companies then turn around and use that nostalgia to generate more revenue, which is fine, and they can leverage that. But, you know, Fortnite also has, like, remember they put, like, Inception? You could watch all of Inception on a movie
I do remember
screen
that.
in
Yeah,
Fortnite,
at
like the way
Risky
Christopher
Reels.
Nolan, the way Christopher Nolan intended. There's concerts. It's just an interesting time. And, you know, 10 years from now, some person's going to be like, Fortnite means the world to me, and they're going to want to make a video, and they're going to have to use whatever community tools are out there to, like,
some archival footage of
they're going to have to dig on
2019 Fortnite.
Yeah, it's interesting. But you can just plop a cartridge in and go. There's something I like about that, the permanence of it.
In a way, I'm very lucky because I really don't. I mean, obviously, that's just the way the industry's going. Is that, you know, it'll be like the mostly digital model and games as a service, which I there's a lot of talk now towards how sustainable that is. And if a big shift is coming towards moving away from that, because I mean, we're seeing a lot of companies suffer for kind of like following these doomed to fail projects because they're not what people want. And I don't know if part of that is the lack of permanence or just the more, I don't want to say predatory aspect of it, but I hadn't even thought about that until you mentioned it, is that a lot of the live service games, because of the way they kind of, it's in their nature that they have to change, you're going to lose a lot. And it's weirdly sad. Like, how can you stand to just get rid of something like that? I don't know. It does feel very strange to think about. Dang, you got my brain moving.
I'm sitting here, I'm thinking too, because, you know, this just happened with Naughty Dog in The Last of Us Online, and they basically were like, we would have had to completely turn the studio around to support this game for years and years and years to come. And writing about it and thinking about it, The Last of Us Part 2 started development in 2016, right after Uncharted 4, and honestly, that was what Neil and Bruce probably were going to make before they had to go in and save Uncharted 4 to begin with. So that multiplayer was originally designed as a mode for the game, just like the original, and that work probably began in 2016. It definitely started in 2017. There's a hiring video on Naughty Dog's YouTube channel in 2017 about hiring for this multiplayer and, like, the vision they had for it. So, like, that work has been going on for that game for the last 6 years, or 5 years, I suppose, since they just canned it. But then you have to think, during that time developing one of the final PS4 games, that's when Jim Ryan takes over. That's when the PS5 is really starting to take shape, and the business plan for Sony's console generation comes in, and they're like, we want 10 or 6 or whatever the number was live service games. Let's take our Last of Us multiplayer mode / now game, and let's make it a live. Like, I feel like they were trying to take a square peg and fit it in a round hole. Like, the game was never designed from the ground up to be a live service. It was just designed to be a multiplayer mode or a multiplayer game eventually, like the ambition grew. And it just never fit this live service model of having to constantly evolve and grow. And so I think I feel like it just has to be two separate things. Where a multiplayer game, if it wants to live on beyond multiplayer modes or whatever of yore, where it would just be a mode that existed and was supported with some map packs and the servers were kept running, you know, what we grew up with, to something more like a Call of Duty or a Fortnite, where it's this platform where you go and you play, and it exists in perpetuity, essentially. It has to be designed into the game from the ground up. The reason Fortnite works is because they pivoted so early. It was that game was completely different from its reveal and its initial build. Then
the like save the world thing.
Yeah, with the zombies and everything. And you then look at how PUBG was popping off at the time, and they were like, we can do that. And that completely shifted and turned the game into the tour de force it is. And now Fortnite has Rock Band in it. Like the revival of the Rock Band franchise is inside Fortnite now. Like that
was never something I expected. I love that. I love Guitar Hero. I love Rock Band. I've always thought that it needs to stick around, and like here we are thanks to Fortnite. Yeah, what an idea!
And the guitar controller will work with Fortnite at some point this year. Like
I think they said they're making new ones too.
Yeah, like thank God for Fortnite, you know.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, you can tell when you're playing Fortnite, like the people who make Fortnite really want to make it. Mm-hmm. There is very clearly passion behind it. Going back to The Last of Us Online, the multiplayer, I don't think it would have been there. Like you could tell that like them having to restructure their whole studio, it's not something they wanted to commit to because possibly it's just not something that they were completely behind. Well, I don't know.
I don't think clearly the team on some level wasn't behind the live service angle of it. I do think the team was behind whatever their multiplayer vision was, which was just based off what I've observed and understand from it is it was a battle royale essentially of surviving in a space. And it's not, I don't think that's, you're not, it's not like a Pepe Sylvia board of string and pictures here. It's like, when was the game being developed? 2016, 2017, 2018. When were battle royales popping off? 2016, 2017, 2018. And then you look at factions from the original Last of Us game, which is especially the survivor mode, which is last man standing, 2 teams of 4, no revives. So you're scavenging and surviving. Like, it's not a big leap to take factions, adapt it into a battle royale type game mode, and implement and then the creativity is, Naughty Dog's story and things like that. How are they going to incorporate that? I think
and
that
you can still very well keep it in line with the world of The Last of Us too.
Right.
It's not like it would stick out like a sore thumb.
Exactly. And until, you give your character, like the floss or whatever, and then your flaw. Like, that's where it starts to break a little bit, I would think. And that would have been interesting to see how they monetize it cosmetically. But I think then you turn that into a live service, and it's like, well, how do we support that for, the next 7 years to meet Sony's expected revenue goals or whatever? I don't know. But the thing is developers that go work at Naughty Dog because they want to make Naughty Dog games. The people that go work at Epic, specifically on the Fortnite side of things, Epic obviously has other companies, they go to work on Fortnite. The people that work for Harmonix, which is owned by Epic, but go work for Harmonix, go to Harmonix to make music and rhythm games. Like, you want those people working on those things who are passionate about making that type of game, but you're not going to take people who make Ghost of Tsushima, Sucker Punch. You're not going to take them and go, all right, now make a first-person shooter, live service, blah, blah, blah. Like, you need to hire people and teams to make those types of games, I think. When you muddy the waters with, well, we need this type of game, please go and make it, I think you end up with a lesser product. And Guerrilla would be a great example of this. Guerrilla was the first-person shooter Sony team, right? Making Killzone. But the team at one point was like, it was after Shadowfall or going into Shadowfall, they're like, we don't want to do this anymore. What does everyone at the studio want to work on? And it turned out to be a prehistoric / futuristic robot dinosaur archer game. And now Guerrilla just makes Horizon games. And so
It's working out pretty well for them too.
It's working out very good for them. But you
as long as they can iron out that whole release time thing, like releasing against masterpiece video games.
Yes, they need to fix that. But now you want to go work for Guerrilla to make a Killzone game. That's not what they do anymore. They make open world RPGs, action RPGs. So that's all interesting. And then the permanence of games and things like that. And, look at Activision turned Toys for Bob into a support studio for Call of Duty,
Yeah, which is so sad. Like, especially after their work on Spyro, it's so sad. Like, because you can tell, like, man, the people who made this really cared about Spyro. Like, there is heart and soul in those remasters. And for them to just be support on Call of Duty, I mean, which is fine, like, sure. But I don't know if their hearts are going to be in it. Like, it definitely doesn't seem that way. At least from the outside looking in. Maybe they're super pumped about it. I don't know. I don't work there, but
yeah,
it just seems like a strange shift.
It does. It does seem like a strange shift. So how do you capture gameplay footage for your video essays?
I was like, how is he going to bring it back? How is it going to come back?
Well, what did you say? You said in the illusion, you're like, get ready for the worst transition of your life, segue or whatever.
Oh, yeah, get ready for the worst segue you've ever seen. It's funny because that is not in the original. I don't want to call it a script because I'm not really writing scripts. But that's not in the original document. I thought about it in my mind while I was saying that, and I was like, oh my god, I'm really just kind of like taking a huge leap here, talking about Mars, and then you can see me kind of look off camera for a brief second, because my girlfriend was helping me film that, and I was just like, get ready for the worst segue you've ever seen. Like, just, it came out, but I was like, man, it really adds to it. I think that it was a great opener.
That's a spontaneous creative moment that I think really, really lands. That's good.
I think I actually got a comment about that, I think, like, today, specifically about that moment. And it made me kind of smile because if I could go back and read it really quick, I have the video pulled up. They said, one thing, oh no, this... I'm not making fun of this person. I really do love this comment. This was great, but you gotta have more confidence in your opening. The whole intro was so strong, and I feel like you sold yourself short with the comment about the bad segue. Again, though, great work. And I'm like, I wasn't selling myself short. It's kind of like the joke.
Bit. Yeah, that's
it's
the
joke,
bit, dude.
But
yeah.
Like, I love that he was like, don't sell yourself short. Like, this was really good. That I really love that comment.
That's very good.
But yeah, anyways, recording game footage. So, a lot of the games that I talk about, well, I guess not a lot of them, but there is some that I used, like, I would capture straight from my TV, like Switch games, or basically a lot of, like, modern Nintendo games. But then there are some, like, what did I say in what's the video called? I can't even remember the names of my own videos. Where is Everyone? I talked about The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, Outer Wilds, Chernobylite, and there's some footage of, I think, Gary's mod. All of that I recorded on my PC.
Uh-huh.
Big shout out NVIDIA. They have a really cool tool for recording your screen that is much better than any other screen recorder that I've ever found. So I recorded footage from those games, and then it hurts to say, but a lot of the footage I use for older games, like probably, GameCube and back, are emulated, just because I really do like, for the presentation of the video, to have like a very clean picture, even though of course that's not the way those games were ever presented. Like, I think in the Donkey Kong 64 video, I talk about Donkey Kong Country 2 like pretty briefly in the beginning, and the way I recorded that was with my camera up against the screen, so you can see like the scan lines of Donkey Kong Country 2 being displayed. But unfortunately, that is an emulator with a CRT filter that just happened to look pretty dang good after I touched it up in post.
I don't think you need to apologize, because that's one of the things that I've really learned talking to some other people on the show, like Javid Stariat with his stuff for the Hyrule Journals, and then I finished a video game. Matt, he plays on emulators, because some of this stuff is just expensive, not just the games themselves and the hardware, but then also capture equipment, and sometimes doing stuff on your computers. You load Super Mario Galaxy up into Dolphin and crank up the internal resolution up to 4K or whatever your computer can handle. It's gonna look stunning.
Oh, it's great, and you can still use a Wii remote and nunchuck if you wanted. Like, you can get a little sensor bar and it works. That's typically how I play that game.
I think I love it, and I'm curious if you use, because some of your shots are like movie shots, the way you're moving the camera in a space in a game that definitely didn't have camera mode, photo mode back in the day. Are you using like mods to remove NPCs and things and just get into still environments? Are you using like the NoClip website to explore game maps? Like,
I was gonna talk about that. You got it right with NoClip. It's NoClip.website. It is one of my favorite websites ever created.
It's so good.
It's run by a guy named, what is his name? I think it's like, I actually have their Discord. I think his name is Jasper. And he has, in my most recent video, I show a screenshot or a screen recording of one of his videos. But his name is Jasper. He created NoClip.website, which is basically a collection of scenes from video games that you can fly around with a free camera and just look at them and just exist in those places. You can go out of bounds. You can clip through things. It's incredible. It is an awesome tool for getting footage.
I'm in Rosalina's Observatory right now.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing. It's so cool, and I dread the day that that website ever gets taken down. I want to say there is a version of it that you can actually just download and have on their Discord.
Okay.
But I don't know for sure. But yeah, I'm in there now, and like they have updates from.
Oh my gosh! It has a studio mode where you can like map out a camera shot.
That's what I do. I use that studio mode, and it's a godsend for what I do, because it lets me get these extremely like well shot cinematic camera movements through different scenes of video games that end up looking great after I'm done recording them. I encourage everybody to go to NoClip.website, use it, mess around with it, support its development. It is one of the best tools for someone like me, and also a really cool insight into how games are made, especially more retro games, into how they're made, and it's a cool way of preserving older games just from a different viewpoint. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's so cool. It's so cool.
I think those shots add a lot to your videos. I think in particular, I'm thinking of like the Where Is Everyone? Just in the sense that, like in the Mirror's Edge stuff, like you're just looking at these spaces in a way that is not how it is in the game, and I think that adds to, specifically at least in the beginning of that video, the eeriness of it. It's like, but where is everyone? This question.
Funny enough, Mirror's Edge, that's just the game footage. I used the PC version. But yeah, like there are some places that you can get to in Mirror's Edge that, I don't know if the game intends for you to be standing there, that offered some pretty scenic views.
Yes.
Of
that game's easy to make
that city
beautiful, though. That is true.
Oh yeah, it's like effortless.
But I like this cinematic approach to looking at game footage. Your Donkey Kong 64 stuff, there's, it's like you have these still camera shots in Donkey Kong 64, and there's like a Kremlin just walking around, in the cave there, and the lights bouncing down the hallway and stuff,
Yeah, like that was in game. I didn't use NoClip.that website for that.
Yeah, but I'm just the idea of these shots though, I think is they're so powerful in a way of making me think about a game that I wouldn't normally.
I think it's part of just like trying to frame it in a way that can convey it to someone the way that I feel about it. So when I think about Donkey Kong 64, like I really do hold it in high regard in my mind, and so when I'm thinking about it, I'm picturing it in the best light possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of want to show it that way to everybody else, and be like, hey, you know, I'm framing this in a way that is supposed to look its best because I see it as being the best. And also from a standpoint of just, I know that the words that I'm writing and the things that I'm saying, that maybe they do have weight to them, maybe they don't have a crazy amount of weight to them, but I know I can amplify what I'm saying with really killer presentation. Mm-hmm. And if I have that opportunity, why not take it and run with it? And I think that's probably the biggest part of it.
Yeah, I like that. I like the thought. It looks way better than throwing up a camera, like your cell phone, next to a CRT and trying to film it that way. I'll tell you that. I have some flips.
Oh, that can be hard. I'm really bad about talking on camera. That's why I do it kind of sparingly.
Smart. Very smart of you. I want to talk about virtual sadness.
Yes. My least viewed of the bunch.
Well, I remember seeing the thumbnail first because, you know, you like shared, you know, new video essay, blah, 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 blah. And I see Celeste in the thumbnail. And it's like that. It's like a gif of someone just like rubbing their hands and getting excited. I'm like, oh boy, my boy is talking about Celeste. Let's go. We
do love Celeste in this house.
I'm getting, you know, I'm so jazzed. I'm ready to watch it. And for some reason, I don't know why. I probably just got distracted. But I watched the short hike part and the Celeste part, but I stopped right before Rhyme. And I didn't watch the Rhyme part until preparing for this episode. And now I've watched it twice. So I've never played Rhyme. And you put these nice spoiler warnings up front. And so like I knew what I was signing up for. I did not watch the Outer Wilds one though, because I'm like, I will play that game someday. So I stopped.
Outer Wilds is its story. So like if you get spoiled on it, like there's almost no point in playing it, even though you should play it. The game's incredible.
Yeah, so I have stayed away from that. But Rhyme, I was like, that's fine. You know, I'm good. I don't need it. You know, whatever. If it's spoiled, it's spoiled. Let's just see where this video goes. And Rhyme is a game that I looked at and was just like, I don't know. Like it looked pretty, but it didn't. Nothing in the trailers that I had seen up to its release or heard about afterward grabbed me, and so I just kind of wrote Rhyme off. And I'm watching your video, and we're going through Rhyme, the tower, this man in the cloak that you can never reach, this fox, and there's a robot, this whole thing. And I guess spoilers for Rhyme. And you're getting toward the end of the game, essentially. You're like, we're getting closer and closer, and you see this flashback of from the perspective of the boy on the boat, and there's the old man in the cloak, and it's raining, and he falls. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get some like weird time travel stuff, like I am the old man, and so like you know, and I built this place or something like that. You know, like I built this monument, and now my younger self is here, and something like that's what I thought it was going. And then, no, you and the video game pull this total gut punch of, no, you're the old man in the cloak, and you're the dad, and your boy is dead. And I, as a dad now, like dad mode engaged, and I just, like, crumpled in my chair. I was like, oh, God, now I have to play Rhyme.
It's brutal.
It's
there in front of your eyes the whole time, and they do an incredible job of making sure that you never get the full picture. So that way, when the rug is swept out from under you, oh my gosh, it hurts so bad.
I couldn't believe it, but it was so impactful, not just from the I didn't know about this game or its story, and like, wow, what a twist type thing, like what a sad twist, but also in the context of your video and how this character goes through these stages of grief and accepts what happened and feels what they're feeling and like processes all of this, and how it ties back into your narrative. And so what I really love, besides the fact that you've introduced me to Rhyme at the cost of the whole story being spoiled, but I think I wouldn't have played Rhyme without that, is this tying your personal experiences and stories and memories in life into the medium of video games and the interactivity, where the story of Rhyme, I imagine, hits harder when you're playing the game and you're doing all these things. You're going through these stages of grief through gameplay and seeing all this unfold, rather than what I did, which was through a video. But this is what I love about really good video essays, is that personal experience and tying it in. And I don't know how you and other people do it, because I guess I haven't sat down and tried to do it, but I mean, I think it makes it hit way harder when you have this personal stuff tied in. When you have ranging from the sports section in Walmart, makes me think about Donkey Kong, to I was really sad for a long time and I just wanted to be a bird,
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, like, what video games are going to be like, when you finish a game, you walk away from it, and you're taking the experience with you into your everyday life, is that video games, because they place you at the center of the story, like everything's happened to you, you're experiencing it firsthand, it's always going to be a reflection of you and how you're feeling at that point in time. Mm-hmm. So sometimes a game just comes along at the right point in time and you're able to resonate with it super easily, because you can either empathize with what it's saying, or you're going through something similar, or you're just playing Doom and you were really in the mood to just like slam through demons. It's always going to be like kind of a reflection of yourself back at you. So that way, like, you will be walking down the street one day and just get hit with memories of Croc 2 on the PlayStation 1. But I think that also does start with opening yourself to it more. And this is something that I talk about a good bit in the newest video that I'm working on right now.
Ooh, scoop.
You get a little inside scoop. But it's something that I talk about a good bit in this new video, and it's basically that if you're able to open yourself up to like what a game is trying to tell you, or what you perceive as the game trying to tell you something, you're gonna have these sort of like profound experiences more often, because you can play something like, I don't want to spoil the game that I'm talking about in the video, but you can play something like, let's say, pick a different game, Minecraft, and it is like, these blocks made of 16 by 16, point filtered textures. It's a pixelated cube game, but you can take something from it based on your experience in it, what you make of it yourself. And even just like, I've seen these like videos on TikTok of Minecraft back in like, I think like 2010, 2011. And it's not anything that anyone's built. It's not anything that's anyone's made or created. But it's just like these shots of the world that were clearly taken with like the Xbox 360 screenshot feature. So they're kind of compressed.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just getting hit with these like waves of emotion that I can't describe. But it's because I kind of left myself open for it. This is a bit of a meandering explanation, and I've kind of lost track of where I was to begin with. But I think it's, you know what I mean when I say like you can kind of, you're able to tie your own personal experience to a game more when you're open to letting it. I think that's it at the end of the day. And I hate that, like, I mean, if this is what really, like, if you find enjoyment in a game because of this, like, I am not faulting you, but I feel like games, especially now, have become a lot more utilitarian than anything, and almost like things to do or chores to do or checklists to mark off. I have so many friends now that are like, I have this game and I really need to platinum it. Like, I'm not really in it anymore, but I gotta platinum it. Or I mean, like, this game is really fun and I want to platinum it. You always gotta platinum it. And if that is what is fun for you, like, I like, go for it. Like, that's great. But I don't want people to, like, it's not that I don't want people to do it. I myself can't think of a game as a checklist or as a goal to achieve or an objective to complete. I need to think of it as almost like a life experience I'm having, like as a piece of art that's going to affect me in some way. And a lot of the times it doesn't. Like, there are games that are just games. Like, sometimes you just need to blow something up. Sometimes you just need to shoot some aliens. But I will always remember that that game is what it is. And if it's not trying to say something to me, and it's very clear that it's not trying to say something to me, is there something that I can take from it anyway? Is there something that I'm trying to say to myself through that game? Mm-hmm. And, you know, where can I take that? It's very difficult to explain. I'm not even sure I did a great job of it, but you know what I mean?
I do. I think a lot, as you're saying that, to my time doing guide work and writing wikis and things like that for IGN. And so that took games that there's different categories, but that would take games that I would have played and transformed my perception and approach to them in a way. Red Dead Redemption 2. I was on the guide team for that. And
I had no idea.
Yeah. But you know what I primarily worked on? Hunting legendary animals. So, like, my experience with that game, now, while I had the opportunity and fortune of actually being able to play through the story kind of the way I wanted to, because I wasn't on that part of the guide that was already handled before launch, a lot of my memories of that game are hunting the legendary cougar up in the mountains or looking for the white moose, and like how to hunt that and present that to potential players. I think, and that applies to a lot of stuff. Dying Light was one of my first guides for the site, and
I remember that.
Yeah, the sheer scope of that game and the collectibles, and like it being my first, and I was the only one on that guide. That game,
that's extremely daunting.
Yeah, I remember it kind of like really breaking me a little bit. It was like this, you've got to find all these 140 statues or something. I was like, but there's nothing for them or whatever. Like, it was hard, especially kind of in the onboarding phase of my guide time. Celeste was a game I did, and I'd get all the strawberries.
I would have like shoved my face through my monitor. No way. Yeah,
I did
every strawberry.
I remember I did Cuphead. And so in some of the God of War 2018, and so some of these, like the experience of the game trumps the work angle to it, right? And I can go back to the game and I feel good and I'm not weighed down by it. But there are some games that I look at and I actually struggle like it's hard for me not to see it as a work list, a work checklist, and to like reclaim the game as a pastime, as a hobby, or something to savor and enjoy without this looming cloud of, you know, search engine optimization crunch and getting things cranked out for $500. Celeste was one that I had to kind of claw back and kind of own it. Cuphead, I haven't been able to bring myself necessarily back to play it. I did do it one time on the Switch, and I guess PS4 will be the next time that I kind of reclaim that and own it. But I don't think I'll ever play Dying Light or Dying Light 2. I've struggled to get back to Hitman and things like that. I'll never play Metal Gear Survive again. That was an absolute abomination.
Oh, yeah. But that's for lots of reasons.
That's a lot of reasons, but it is that was a painful time. You know, God of War is interesting. And I think that's part of why I haven't gone back to Red Dead, is because there's like a little bit of work looming around that game. In that game, in that job in particular, I remember feeling so pressured to get the content out that like we were traveling for, I think, Thanksgiving, and I took the PS4 with me so that I could play on vacation. Like, it's hard sometimes when you, and it's silly. Like, what my job was to play video games and write about them. That's great, but there's this like this mental crutch of taking something that is meant to be fun and turning it into work. And it's,
well, any work is always going to be work.
Yes,
you know, like it's hard, like, not to feel like you're selling yourself short, but like it is always going to be hard when it's hard. And then
you try to go back to it later, and it's like, this isn't, like, I don't know. I'm constantly reminded of work in a weird way. And there's cool bits and pieces, and I take different things and experiences from it. I remember Red Dead was like when I was starting a new technique for keeping track of notes and stuff, and I essentially journaled. I essentially journaled my own playthrough of the game in a physical journal. So I have this tangible history of like my pace and feelings roughly through the game, and that's in a notebook that I still have and things like that. So it's, I don't know, where were we originally? Like, we were talking about
like, well, I mean, you were talking about how it's hard for you to go back to games that you did kind of view as checklists or work.
Right. Yes. Okay. And, you know, you're sitting down to play a game, and what are you getting out of it? What can you get out of it? What is it trying to say to you, or what are you trying to say to it in a way? And I get that, because I feel that from this work perspective, and it's this balance of life. I think I felt that a little bit with The Last of Us Part 2, because I did all that work for chasing the stick, and I kind of just played the game and didn't dig in past that to a certain degree. It's all very interesting. Like, where you are with a game totally impacts how you feel about it later when you come back to it, or when you're out at the grocery store and you see something and it makes you think of that thing. It's circles all the way back up to the top with a river where time stops. It's these time trapping machines. Video games are time trapping machines.
Yeah, easily. And it's, I think like the easy, like, I mean, I just had it last night. Like, I was recording footage for the new video, and I remember trying to get something out of a game that I don't think was ever there. And I realized that, you know, I can't, you can't really go into games seeing them in that way. Like, I'm doing this for work. Like, I'm doing this so I can create something from it. Like, I mean, obviously if it's your job and you have to, of course, you know, do what you got to do. But if you're able to maintain that sort of like almost childlike, you know, casual appreciation for just games as they are, you're always going to get more enjoyment. And then that's when you start to like feel for it a whole lot more. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like I try my best to hold on to that, so that way I don't fall into the whole pit of just I can't play this because it feels like work. And I mean, there are games that feel like work.
Sure.
Like Ubisoft seems to be pumping out a whole bunch of those lately. Not to name one developer specifically, but I never want it to feel like work, because that's not the initial.
It's not what
like,
you're sitting down to
reason.
do necessarily.
Yeah,
but
like that's not the reason games are created.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, we're on the same page. I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here and just thinking about more times with the game. Maybe I should just write these down so that I can talk about them in different contexts. Because if we go down this rabbit path, it'll be a long.
Oh yeah,
dark.
there's a few I'm sure we could go down.
Yeah.
Like part of it, I think at the end of it all is like, I don't know. I feel like people are very quick to see games as like, I think that's kind of the whole thing I'm trying to get across, at least in the videos that I make, is that people are very quick to, I don't know if relegate's the right word, but relegate games to just this, like they're video games. That's all they are. Like they're just a distraction. Like you're just playing them to have fun. And yes, you are having fun, but there are games like, The Last of Us, Red Dead Redemption 2, Celeste, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, even games like Super Mario Galaxy, I would argue, that are showing you that you're going to be able to find enjoyment in things that aren't quite joy, that things that aren't quite happiness, that feeling strong emotions like that are like important, and you can get those from a video game. You can get them from a video game very easily. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of games now, like you look at like open world games with so many things to do, the HUD is like cluttered with things like notifications to constantly keep you busy, like it's a job, like it's a chore. But if you can like get all that out and really get down to like the meat of what a game is and what it's trying to tell you, or what you can tell yourself from it, I think like, the saddest thing that I ever hear people say is, I need to keep myself busy because, God, to be alone with my own thoughts, what a horrible idea. But like, that's everything. You are your own thoughts. Like, hold on to that. Like, let those like bleed through into the games you play and soak them back in, because you're going to find yourself enjoying way more games than you did before, and the games that you do really enjoy, you're going to love them instead of just kind of like them.
Yeah, you're going to get way more out of it in life and other things, other mediums that you're interacting with.
Oh yeah.
I
think movies are like the easy one, because they're like easily crafting like a specific emotion for you to feel. But when it's a video game and you're there, whoa, it's different. It's just different.
It's different when it's in your hands and you're the one in control.
I think like there was a point that a part of the illusion that I actually took out, but I mentioned that I experienced this most recently with Cyberpunk. Like there's a moment where you actually like almost wake up and you start to notice that the screen you've been looking at has bezels, and there's a controller in your hand, and you're sitting on a couch, and all the experiences you had were in a video game world, in a virtual world. And it's like, whoa, I was there. Like that was like, I was so immersed that it really felt real. But like, just because it's all virtual, who's to say that it's not real? Let it be real. If you want it to be real, it is.
That's exactly what Zuckerberg wants you to think. That's exactly what
the sweet baby rays.
The sweet baby rays all over your MetaQuest 3.
There is a third one now. I forgot.
Yeah, I was just they apparently the 3DS emulator Citra is coming to the MetaQuest 3.
Is it really?
Yeah, so you'll be able to play your 3DS games in VR.
In 3D?
In 3D, yeah.
That's so cool.
It made me look at a MetaQuest 3.
But honestly, I kind of want to now too.
Exactly. But speaking of video games for work, you also make video games, which is work.
Oh boy, is it.
It is work. And so, again, just like I started up at the top with the video essays, this is the question that people want to know. Where's the PS4 port of Light of the Mountain?
Oh, no. Yeah, I forgot about that.
You promised
me.
Like, I'm waiting for it.
We had gotten early, like, word that, like, yep, it's happening. And then when the time came, we were like, all right, we're in, right? And they were like,
You're
nope.
not in.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I already said it was happening. What the heck? And so we basically were just like, all right, it's for the future. Like, it will maybe someday happen. But it's not looking like it. It's not looking like it.
Hurry up and get a PS5 dev kit. Make the ray-traced version of Light of the Mountain.
You know what? It really wouldn't take much effort to do that. I really could.
You say that. Be careful.
But it's effort that I would have to put in for a game that I'm like, you know what? Like, the ship has sailed. It's past the horizon. It's a thing I made, and like I'm proud of it. It's something that I created and poured a lot of time into.
Yeah. Like,
sure, it's really buggy, and sure, like its story and its themes are very heavy-handed, but yeah, I it's a thing I made, and it is a huge representation of like how I was feeling at the time. Like, that's me in 2016, 17, 18. It's super cool.
Yeah. Follow-up question. Where's the Museum of Forgotten Space? Because
that's funny. That's still in active development.
Is it? Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Good.
That's actually a project that I work on in my own time.
Okay.
Like, Dylan doesn't really help me with that. It's weird because that's more of Jacob Geller has a great video on this topic, but it's a game that's not really a game, but it's more of like an experience. It's very difficult to explain, but it's something that I work on like very, very slowly in my own time, and it is I really like the idea. I think it's super cool, and it will come out someday. I have no idea when.
Okay. Because the last time that we podcasted was for Banjo Tooie.
Yes, I remember.
And the pre-show in Super Chapter Select you gave us like the pitch for this game, and I was like, that game sounds dope. And then
did I give you the pitch for it?
Oh yeah, you even apparently like shared your screen with us. So like,
I do remember that.
So I have like a semi-decent idea of like what the Museum of Forgotten Space is supposed to be, like conceptually.
Yeah, you've seen like very, very, very early builds of it.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that was 2 years ago.
And then today it dawns on me that Iota is not the Museum of Forgotten Space with just a different name. And so I was like, oh, this isn't the same game that he told me about 2 years ago. And so I'm like, I'm fascinated, I guess, by the
process.
The process, because you have a list of games on your website that you've worked on that are unreleased, and it's like you have more games unreleased than you have games released, and I think that's not a knock. Making video games is very difficult, and the iterative and idea process, like sometimes things just aren't working or whatever. I'm just curious about that process of like, how do you land on Iota? Am I saying that right? That's like how you would pronounce
Iota,
it?
yeah.
Okay. It's Iota just with a period in the middle and then a capital A at the end.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
I'm sure there is. I just want to,
the game's not out yet.
Yeah, it's not. But, that's the next project that Sunhouse Games is making is Iota. And I'm just curious the journey from Light of the Mountain to these other projects that are in between to you're doing your own thing with the Museum of Forgotten Space. Dylan was apparently supposed to help you with Museum 2 years ago after they were working on a
he
project.
Still is eventually. Like, he knows there's a point where I'll bring the project to him and be like, all right, it's ready for your program, because there's very little programming that will go into it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just like, just bring it to me when you're ready. And I'm like, cool. see you in like a decade.
Yeah, and so how is this games that aren't games? Here's the Jacob Geller video.
Great video. Great video.
It's got a very scary thumbnail.
Yeah, it does.
But that's his. That's
the
his,
big face.
That's his mantra. And
yeah,
so
I love that dude. That dude makes great stuff.
He does. Jacob Geller, shout out. How do you end up at IOTA? Like, what is that journey there?
So, like, our thing at Songhouse Games, we don't like at Songhouse Games we do this. We really don't like to like abandon ideas unless we really do not believe in them. And which we've done there. So after Light of the Mountain, we had a pretty like clear direction of what we wanted to do. And we did that. We made probably like, oh man, like 60 to 70% of a game, called Harbinger's Lament, which I'm sure will eventually release. But there came a point where we realized that the things that we really wanted to do, we couldn't fully realize them with, one, the skill set we had at the time, and two, the amount of people we had. Like it just wasn't going to be feasible. And so we were like, okay, like we need to remember that we're a team of two people. We need to, you know, keep things scaled down to something that a team of two people can handle. And we moved on to another project, which was like this first person platformer where you could run on walls and like dash and move really quick and jump really high. And it was in this like
Mirror's Edge.
Almost, yeah, like kind of, but it was in like these like abstract like voids of like buildings and train tunnels and maintenance access ways and weird cubes and just these places that were like almost frozen in time for you to just jump through. And we were going to make it really hard, but we abandoned that one really quickly because we realized we were just making it to make it. It wasn't really an idea that we believed in. And we wanted to, you know, do something more substantial. So then we struggled for a long time to find our footing, and we landed on another game, which was a horror game that we actually, like, the world was almost completely finished. And I'm not sure what happened there, but it was mainly like the subject matter was like a little too spooky, and working on it was becoming kind of like it felt like it was mentally degrading me. Like Songhouse Games is definitely not a horror game developer, so we were like, for the sake of our mental health, we need to jump off this project, because constantly working in like these dark environments and with like some really heavy elements of death and like trying to make a spooky game with no jump scares, it was like a mixture of too much for us to take on and also an idea that quite literally was too heavy for us to be constantly working on. And that's when I was like, what are we trying to do? Like, what's the message that we're trying to put out? And it wasn't something of, you know, a mysterious like side scroller through a like very like, I don't know like what the word is, but we made this like super weird like side scroller, which was Harbinger's Lament, through this like strange world with like weird obelisks and magic. And like I was like, I don't know if we're telling a story that's right for us to be telling. And the same thing with the Museum of Forgotten Space. That's why I kind of kept it as like my own little project, until we landed on IOTA. And I was like, IOTA is the kind of game that I think fits at least me best, where it's colorful, it's expressive, it's funny. Like I can't tell you how many times we would be working on something in the game and I'm just like losing my mind, like laughing. It's we want it to be like weird. We want it to be out there, and just filled with this type of things that like make us laugh and are enjoyable to us, and like a world that I could see myself wanting to explore because there's something new to find around every corner. So that's where that came from. And also something that would really like allow me to flex my musical muscles, because I made all the music for Light of the Mountain. I wanted to make something that was the exact opposite of that, and so IOTA just allowed for that super easily, and it's been really fun. I really love working on IOTA.
So when is IOTA coming out? Give me the scoop right now.
I'm hoping sometime this year.
All right, I'll take it.
It's looking like the end of the year.
Okay.
Development slowed during the holidays pretty substantially. There's just a lot to do.
Everything's slowed during the holidays.
Oh man. But the worst thing about game development is that you get to those not standstills, but like where things start to slow down, where you do have less time to work on your game. It's like playing an RPG and like getting like 80% of the way through the RPG, waiting 6 months, and then coming back to play it again.
You might as well just
like,
start all over.
Yeah, it really does feel like that. I mean, obviously we're not going to start over on IOTA, but it really does feel like that, where I come back to it and I'm like, oh my gosh, where was I? Like, what was I thinking? What am I doing? Where do I start? So you really can't let yourself stagnate, because there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of little things to account for and contend with. Game optimization is not always super easy, even for a game that looks like IOTA. And I really wouldn't say that game development is hard. I enjoy it. I don't really find it to be difficult, but tedious would be the better word, and time consuming would be the better word. There is just so much to do, and on such a granular level, but also a massive level, that it's hard to, find the time to do it all.
Right. And it's not your full-time job either. So it's you're finding time, you're making time, throughout the week, throughout the months, to sit down and do this thing with a friend, but you've got, 15 million other things to do.
Oh, plus, yeah. And it has to be something your heart is in, because something that's that much of a daunting task, like, you gotta be in it. You have to be. All
the way. 100%. But also, I think a part of that is, and you tell me, you're teaching yourself. I mean, I guess Light of the Mountain more so, because that was square one for you at least. But I mean, you're like doing the thing and learning how to do it on the fly. So you didn't go to school for game development or programming necessarily or anything of the sort. So what is this learning? Is it just Googling everything? YouTube tutorials and watching Game Maker's Toolkit and being like, I can't be this scrub. I gotta make a really good video game. Like, how are you? I have no clue how I would design a video game in general, but I have a lot of opinions about other people's designs. Oh yeah, I can critique the thing, but I can't do the thing, which is the curse of the critic, I suppose. And their job technically is, my job isn't to make it, my job is to critique it. So you're switching to the other side to learn how to make it, and so I'm curious how you teach yourself and what how you approach that.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, for starters, like, even now, I am like very, very amateur game developer. Like, there is a lot I don't know. There's a lot I'm not like very good at. Like, there are people making stuff that is absolutely insane by themselves, like Abraham Kozar, Kitty Horror Show, Color Fiction. Like, these are all like very, very small developers that you don't hear a whole lot about that make incredible stuff. So I don't know. It's hard not to have a little bit of imposter syndrome. But when it started, yeah, like I really didn't know what I was doing at all. Like I just knew that if I wanted to make a game, I was gonna have to download some like free game engine like Unity or Unreal, and I knew Unreal had the steeper learning curve, so Unity was the smart choice at the time. And yeah, it really was like youtube.com search bar, how do I make a video game in Unity? And there was this this digital creator named Brackies, who I don't think really makes Unity tutorials anymore, but he is like a god in the Unity game development world. Like I owe like probably like half of everything of Light of the Mountain to that guy. But yeah, like it was, you know, like how do I work the terrain in Unity? How do I change it? How do I manipulate it? Like how does grass work? How does grass work? How do trees work? Like how does water work? How do I, you know, import my objects from Blender? How do I make objects in Blender? What is texturing? What are PBR materials? Like how do I really get a good control of lighting while not making my shadows flicker and not making my game run like dog poop? It's so much to learn, and I mean I'm always still learning. Now I'm at the point with IOTA where I understand what my skill set is, and I know like the areas in which they're probably not going to grow anymore, and the areas in which they probably can still grow. That's why IOTA looks the way it does. Like it's the perfect evolution of Light of the Mountain's art style, where it is like very low poly, but it's cleaner. It's more detailed. There's just more complexity in the meshes. There's more going on because I was able to kind of like, I mean, you've seen the Museum of Forgotten Space. Like it's really, really pushing what I know. Like that game is using a lot of like PBR materials, more advanced lighting, more advanced everything than what I'm used to. That's why that game takes so much longer to make, just because it's the project where I push myself, and IOTA is where I'm comfortable enough in what I'm doing to make something that I feel is like really solid. But again, like every now and again I'm still going through the Unity forums. Every now and again I'm still looking at a YouTube video on how to do something. Like you're always going to be learning. It's just the way that I learned is I don't know how different it is from everybody else, but it feels that like I was kind of in the trenches for a while on the internet, just trying to like really figure out how to do it. And somehow I figured out how to do it.
So that's a technical side of things, is working within the game engine Unity and bringing the stuff that's like in your mind and turning it into a digital object. You know, I'm fascinated with how you've got to dump all this stuff out of your brain onto the screen in some way. And how do you come up with the story? The music I get more because, you know, I've known you as a musician basically since I met you over a decade ago, and you've even written a song for Behind the Pixel. So I'm very familiar with the music. Like the music part doesn't actually surprise me at all. It's like, oh yeah, Brian writes music. But it's this, also Brian's a level designer, an art designer. He writes his story and dialogue, but I know the answer is to just do the thing. Like you just do it and you learn from it, and the next thing you make is better. Like it's just this cycle of learn, create, do, learn, create, do, learn, create, do, keep going and going and going. But I look at IOTA, you know, and it's a great little description. What is it? IOTA is a game about conversation and choice in a colorful world of strange people, weird creatures, and pizza. And so I just
and
like
pizza.
And pizza, very important. This pizza, it seems. I guess I'm just impressed and floored, and this applies to you and every video game that really ever comes out of meaningful quality. And I only say that to just wipe away the bottom of the barrel clickbait, microtransaction slime that is just predatory. So I try to sweep that out. Although I guess it does take a level of creativity to come up with those schemes. And you turn it into this real thing, which I guess leans back into your video essays. This is a real thing in a real place within a digital space. I don't see myself doing it, which I guess is why I'm so impressed. And I guess, I don't know, how did this colorful city come to life and you come up with this story and things? I'm just so, I don't know, I'm so floored here at 10:15 at night.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't sell yourself short. I mean, you look at max frequency as that is a huge object. That's something that you've poured a ton into, and now it is its own entity in a way not unsimilar to a game that I've created or that anyone's created. You're putting all this time and energy into something that has its own personality at the end of the day, just in a much different way than any other piece of art. When it comes to the stuff that I make, Light of the Mountain, I had that story for quite a while. It was originally going to be a short film that I was going to work on right out of high school, because for the longest time I thought I was going to be a filmmaker, but it became something that it became something that I just was I don't know if that's it. But I held on to that story for the longest time because I really enjoyed it. And I thought I didn't know if I had the best way of telling it, but I wanted to tell it. And so getting that into Light of the Mountain was the coolest thing in the world. As far as designing a place, a space that you can be in, I mentioned very briefly in The Illusion how I never really had a blueprint for how the main hub of the game would look.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know for sure what it was going to be, but I would kind of throw ideas at it and be that sounds cool, why don't I try that? Or this won't really work, but what if I can twist it in a way that will make it fit better with something else? And Iota is the same way, where Iota is more geared towards just being a strange object and getting a laugh out of people. It would be me and Dylan does this sound funny? Does this sound like it would be a fun gameplay scenario? Does this sound like it's intriguing to someone who's just playing it for the first time? And then we write it down, we kind of mull it over for a few days, come back to it. Does it still work? Yes, no. The city itself, it is kind of the stranger thing to parse for me, because I could close my eyes and I could see this city that was just made up of all these different colors, and these kind of pastel purples and salmons and teals and cyans, and I could see it in my head, and I could see the lights and everything. I just didn't know how I was going to translate that to a game.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of it stinks to say, but I kind of just went ahead and started, and I was let's let it grow from one tiny seed of a single building. I think in the trailer it's the building that says Job Corp on it is
yes.
where the main character works. That's the first building I ever put down. And then from there I was well, maybe I could line this street with other buildings that might have some shops, to kind of fill out this scene a little better. And there can be an alleyway back here, or oh whoops, I accidentally created an alleyway over here, let's put something there to see if we can fill that space. I took a lot of cues from funny enough, Link's Awakening, where I feel like that world, the island of Koholint in Link's Awakening, does an excellent job of using all of the space that it has effectively, and there's purpose everywhere you go. And I wanted to translate that to my game, where everywhere you go, there's always going to be something for you to find, whether it's a quick little joke or something that's going to lead you down like some really weird rabbit hole that's going to be constantly surprising you. And then the music just comes out of that, like little stories here and there just kind of come out of that, and just trying to constantly keep the player on their toes while at the same time like not taking it too far, not like getting out of our own like kind of wheelhouse, and not making the game bigger than it needs to be, because that's a huge issue that I never realized was a big problem with video games. Is, at least for me, I have a problem with taking like ideas that are small and simple and great and kind of like blowing them way out of proportion and making them way bigger than they need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to like rein myself in while also challenging myself is kind of a part of what helps me get like those places into the editor, into the editor and into the engine, and like get those stories into those places. Like inspiration kind of comes from the things you've already done, and how can you grow those and how can you evolve those. It's a weird process, but it's a process.
Yeah, you have to challenge yourself, and you have these ideas of things to pursue or create, and what would be cool or what would be funny or what would be engaging.
The hardest thing is always like to start. I feel like that's the main thing, is once you begin, you're able to like you can follow something. You can follow some like path somewhere. And if it doesn't work, that's just progress. You'll know like, okay, that didn't work. Let's see if I could follow this into another direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes putting down the job corp and then going from there. You can't plan the city without starting from somewhere.
From one little building to
one little
a bunch
job.
of stuff.
One little job corp.
One little job corp.
It's cool to see. You're the only game developer I know, at least publicly. Like, I don't know, maybe someone I know is making a game and I just don't know it yet. But you're the only game developer I know, and I think that's really, really neat and inspiring to see and see you create things. All I really ask is you put it on at least the Mac, Bring it to the Mac.
I think we could do that.
I need it. I want to play your games. I need the means.
I think that's doable.
PlayStation 5, put a platinum in there.
Okay.
Isn't there a behind the pixel reference in Light of the Mountain?
There is a behind the pixel reference.
Yes.
Because I remember
there's a book or something, right?
Yeah, there's a book.
I'm in a video game
called. You are. I think it even says Max Roberts on it.
Yeah.
It was because I remember when you guys were doing the Model Citizens podcast, which like I feel like I always have to keep like explaining, like not explaining. I have to reiterate. Like I watched I watched every episode of that podcast. I loved it. I thought it was great. But I remember there was like the running joke where you had Behind the Pixel, which was just like interviewing people in the games industry, and Michael Logan and Mario would constantly refer to it as beneath the pixel. I remember
they still do to this day.
Yeah, and so like I was very happy to have like a small part in that, like writing the music for it, which is like still to this day one of my like favorite things I've written. That's why it's on my portfolio. But yeah, I was like, I gotta put this in. I feel like I have to. And I was like, it would be that easy. I could just do it really, really quick. And yeah, so it's still in the game. It's still there. And it will probably always be there. I don't see myself like patching that out at any point.
Can't patch me out. I'm there forever, baby.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in the...
I can't remember the quote, though. It was something like, Shadow Moses or something. I can't remember.
Probably something
Something to do with
related.
Shadow Moses. Yeah.
We should look that up. I'm sure there's got to be a picture or screenshot or something of it at some point.
I have to have it somewhere. It's got to be there.
Yeah, it has to be. I like it.
Yeah, I feel like Michael was the biggest the pusher of that joke.
Yes, because I think it was his. I think he came up with it. I think initially. So
yeah,
he holds on to it. It's funny. Don't listen to this, guys. But it is funny. But it's also annoying.
It can be both funny and annoying.
It can be.
And that's another I forget to mention really quick. I'm not sure they'll listen to this, but I was lucky enough to get the chance to meet both Logan and Michael, and they are some stand up fellas. Those are some good dudes. Love them to death. I don't talk to them much. I don't get to talk to them much, but they're great. I haven't met Mario, but Mario seems very nice. But
where did you meet
Logan
them? Was this at a PAX?
I went to PAX. Yeah.
Okay. Which PAX? Which one?
PAX East 20. I think it was 2018 or 2019. One of those years.
I think it would have been 2018. The only PAX I've been to was 2019.
Okay, then it was definitely 18 because I remember you.
Yeah, you would have met them because I wasn't there, so you would have met them in 18.
Yeah,
I went in 19. 2020 was the last PAX before COVID, and then they brought it back. I don't know when 22.
I think so. I think they took 21 off.
Yeah, I think.
Such a fun convention.
I miss PAX. I miss the.
It was great.
I miss the atmosphere, I should say, of it. I don't. I would like to go back, I think.
I'm going to go back at some point. It was just nice because it's man, I feel like these are my people. I could stop anyone and talk to them about any game or anything, and they'd be into it.
Yeah.
It's just cool to be around people of the same ilk. It's nice.
Yeah, I think that's why those types of things still have a place to some degree.
Oh, yeah.
Conventions and whatnot. The gathering of people, like-minded folks, is still.
You gotta have it.
So what you're hearing here first, folks, is IOTA's going to have a booth at PAX East here in 2 months.
We'll be there.
Are you going?
If you don't see us, just look harder. And if you never found us, well, you just weren't looking hard enough.
You weren't looking hard enough. Are you actually going to PAX? Not as Sonhouse, but just are you going in a couple of months?
No, but
neither am I.
Funny you should mention. I am going. I will be attending a. I will be attending a convention called MegaCon in Orlando.
Oh yes.
Funny enough, I have a panel there.
You're going to be on a panel?
Yes. So
what's the topic?
6 to 8 months ago, I went on their website, and as a joke, I went to their apply for a panel section, and I knew that I was they're not gonna pick this. This is not gonna happen. They will not they're not gonna allow this. This is so stupid. But I put in my name, I put in my email, I said what days that I would be there. I think I wrote any day, you just tell me when to show up. But they said give a brief description of the panel you want to do. And I wrote verbatim, this is what I wrote. Goblins are real. You know it. I know it. Since the Middle Ages, humanity has pondered the idea, the horrifying possibility, that goblins walk the earth. We see them in fantasy games, movies, and books, but the reality is that the existence of goblins has been purposefully hidden from the public. In under an hour, I will show undeniable proof, photos, video, and audio, that goblins live among us. Nobody is willing to speak the truth, so I, Brian Henken, will finally reveal to the public the undeniable reality of goblins existing on planet Earth. And then I put a disclaimer. Obviously, this is satirical, and then in parentheses, or is it? And I'm not actually going to be proving that goblins are real or not. Or am I? It's meant to be fun and lighthearted. It's serious for fans of fantasy IPs like D&D and Lord of the Rings, which are real. I'll use a PowerPoint which will show video and photos that are obviously fake, or are they?
Are they?
And there will be some light audience participation, even though some of them may secretly be goblins. You don't know. So someone at MegaCon saw that and they were like, yeah, this is a great idea. Give this guy a panel room to himself to give a seminar on why goblins are real.
You're basically doing the donkey video.
Yeah, like that's why I was just like, not only are they gonna be like, one, this is stupid, but they're gonna be like, two, like this is just gonna be rehashing that. But this is not gonna be rehashing. I have real
I'm sure
proof
you
that
have a
goblins are
whole
real.
thing.
I'm gonna play it as serious as I possibly can. So, if you're gonna be at MegaCon this year, one of those days, or maybe two of those days, I will be giving a talk on why goblins are actually real. So stop on by.
That's spectacular. I kind of want to try and see that. That would be awesome.
I will know in 2 days on the 19th. I will know what days that I'm doing it. So I'm gonna have somebody record it. I'll have video evidence of it.
Just like
same
goblins.
as my video evidence of goblins. So I'll be there.
Oh my gosh, I wonder who approved this. Like, wow,
I'd
that's
love
a
to meet
story.
them.
Yeah, you should try and meet the people that approved this. This is hilarious.
The email I got was from some dude named Mike. I don't remember his full name, but I mean, it's probably best that I don't give his full name.
Yeah, I wouldn't dox the man.
Yeah,
but that's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting.
Does this mean, so if the panel goes well, does this mean you'll try to panel again?
Oh yeah, definitely. I up until like last week, I was like, I don't know if I actually want to do this. I need to email them back and be like, no, like I was kidding.
Please let me out.
But now I'm like, why not? Let's just do it. Let's have some fun with it.
Yeah.
And if it does go well, then yeah, sure, I'll probably do it. I'll probably apply for another one next year or somewhere else and either do another like joke or something a little more in line with what I actually like doing.
Goblins 2, are they realer than last time?
Goblins 2, even more real than you thought last time.
Two goblin, too furious.
Two goblin, two gob, two lin.
I like it. Two gobby, two lin, two goblin. It's there's good material there.
Yeah, there's a pun there somewhere that we could use.
There's a franchise brewing, is what I'm sensing.
I'm really excited about it. I'm quite excited.
Well, I'm glad that we could get the scoop on your Goblin panel, your video game, and your essays. I love it. I love you. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining me this evening.
Oh, I love you too. Oh, you're welcome. This was a good, man, we really had a lot to cover.
Oh, we cranked it out. I have more things that we could talk about and probably will talk about after the show, but I think that'll wrap it up for this particular episode of the Max Frequency Podcast. So, find folks, if you want to find Brian on the internet, you can go to brianhenken.com. Follow him on Twitter. Is it at Brian Henken on Twitter? Is that, you got it all? Is it all your name?
Yeah, my website is brianhenken.com. That's like a portfolio for most of my work, and then on Twitter it is at Brian Henken, BrianHenken.
And then Brian Henken YT for YouTube. There will be links to all this in the show notes. That's where you can see all his essays.
I think they actually are changing the way they do channel links now. Did you see that?
I
think if you do let me do it really quick. It's so they have YouTube it's at and then your username.
Oh, I see it here. Yeah.
So
yeah.
If you do youtube.com at brian.henken, that's mine.
Got it. That will
They're
be
getting
the
rid
link.
of the old system.
That'll be in the show notes then. A link to all that stuff. You can watch his video essays. You can go get Light of the Mountain on Steam. Not PlayStation 4, but Steam. And then keep your eye out for Iota. and it's pizza pies.
Yes, at some point this year. Lots of pizza, lots of like Smash Bros. wireframe models.
It is.
And,
it's very Smash Bros.
Strange characters, if you will.
Yes. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you'd like, you can find my writing over at maxfrequency.net and my other podcast, Chapter Select, that I do with Logan Moore, where we bounce back and forth between a series exploring its evolution, design, and legacy. We just wrapped up season 6, which was all about Pokemon. And my goodness, that was a lot of RPG.
That seemed like quite a lot.
I was a broken man by the end of it.
I would have been dead.
I
don't think I would have survived that.
I felt like it a little bit, but we got it done and on time when we said we were going to get it done. So I'm very proud of that. But our next couple of seasons, season 7 is the Metroid Prime series, and then 8 is Castlevania.
Yes.
So
Simon's Quest.
I'm getting ready to play that. Pray for me.
Oh God, my thoughts and prayers are headed your way, brother. Yeah. I do need to mention, I completely forgot. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. When we were talking about my latest video, it's called The Illusion. There's a few people I wanted to like make note of. That was the first video I really did. Well, technically the second, where people actually helped with it. There were people that did other voiceovers. Yes, it was, and they. Oh my! Like I am super grateful to them. I can't thank them enough. There was there's 4 people: Patrick Riley, Brandy Bedingfield, and a guy on Discord called McWin Gamer. The 3 of them don't have like links that I can link you to. They said they don't really have anything or want anything, but they wanted to be credited. But the other person who helped me and did some voiceover, her name is Fantastic Miss Fish. She has a YouTube channel called Fantastic Miss Fish and makes really, really great stuff. Please check her out. I am very grateful for her helping me, and that I just needed to get that out. I needed people to hear about these people that helped me.
There will be names and links to all of them in the show notes, so people can go check out at least the names and the links where applicable for all those fine people. I will tell you this before we say goodbye. While you were saying, like, I have to thank this person and this person, I was thinking of, like an award speech, because all the shows are going on right now, and we just had the Game Awards a month ago and things like that. And part of my brain was tempted to just start
playing music.
Game Awards, just start playing music 10 seconds into your thing.
You could always put it in post if you really want.
Yeah,
won't have any reaction to it, but
yeah, that was why I was just like, if you heard me just start humming the music or whatever, and it would have been better if I had the clip. Like, I feel like you wouldn't have necessarily gotten the joke right away, but
it would have taken a second. But then I would have seen I don't know his name, the guy who voices Kratos.
Yes, you would have seen him in your mind's eye, Christopher Judge, just standing.
That's
there.
His name, Chris Judge.
Yep. Oh my gosh, they really need to tighten up. But without further ado, I thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, adios.
Have a great night, or whatever time you're watching.
Whenever you listen to it.